Welcome everyone to our webinar, Community-Based Recreation, Designing Programs for School-Aged Children with Disabilities. My name is Caleb. I'm the training specialist here at the Mid-Atlantic ADA Center, and I am here with our presenters, Corey and Sandy. I'm going to hand it right over to them. They can introduce themselves and get us into the webinar.
Thank you so much, Caleb. This is Sandy Kellstrom. I'm a certified therapeutic recreation specialist and a therapeutic recreation coordinator with the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. I have over 30 years of experience in the clinical and community-based programs and services with individuals with disabilities, and an emphasis on the work that I do is about community inclusion and equal access for all.
Good afternoon. My name is Corey Smith. I'm going to ask you to click to the next slide, and here we have a picture of Sandy Kellstrom on the left, and a picture of myself on the right. Again, my name is Corey Smith. I am an inclusion coordinator for MNC PPC, the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, Prince George's County, Department of Parks and Recreation. That is a mouthful. We want to welcome you and thank you for joining us today. So, next slide. I'm going to begin by reviewing our objectives. After today's presentation, we're hoping that you will be able to discuss the continuum of therapeutic recreation as it relates to community-based parks and recreation programs. We're hoping you'll be able to identify 3 methods of building structure within the program and develop 3 to 5 ways to establish expectations that are clear and transparent. Finally, we're hoping that you'll be able to analyze the needs of the program participants through assessment tools to develop reasonable accommodations or modifications. And we're going to move on to the next slide, number 15. So to start off, here we have pictured the continuum of therapeutic recreation. It's a diagram. On the left side of the diagram is recreation therapy in the clinical setting. And as you move along the continuum to the right, you're going to progress into outpatient clinical settings and then community-based programs and services, which include therapeutic recreation programs, inclusion services, and independence. At any given point in time, any one of us could fall anywhere on this continuum. For example, if I were to get into a bad car accident and it happened to leave me paralyzed as a result, I would start off on the clinical side of the continuum and I would work toward moving to the community side. When I'm in the hospital, hopefully a rec therapist would be on my treatment teams along with physical therapy and occupational therapy. They would then follow me to rehab or to the outpatient therapy setting, and utilizing my recreation and leisure pursuits as a motivator, they would help me achieve my therapy and personal interest goals. As I transition out of therapy, I might choose to take part in programs through my local Recreation and Parks Department where I could utilize the support of inclusion services or whatever that department offers to participate in therapy and activities of my choosing.
So you're probably wondering, how does this relate then to a school-aged child? So I'm going to give you an example of how a 12-year-old child might be able to use the continuum. A 12-year-old child may be attending a therapeutic recreation after-school program, but then the child's able to attend a general recreation karate class with the supportive inclusion services implementing a disability accommodation with a trained staff. And then the same child, maybe during the same exact week, wants to attend a computer gaming class, but is able to participate independently. There, we have used the full continuum. When the class or the environment change, a person's needs and supports may change as well. A child is not labeled to stay in one area of the continuum. The child or person utilizing the continuum can choose to move about the continuum as it meets their needs. Slide number 16. So pictured, we have a 2-story house, a house with a front door and 2 windows, with a pathway leading to the door. Imagine coming home after your work day. You walk up to the house, you open the front door, and step inside to find one giant room. You have the freedom to walk around and do whatever you want. what might your initial feelings be? You might feel confused, overwhelmed, unsure. And now it's dinner time. It's time to prepare a meal. You realize that you have to look around to locate the food, the dishes, the pots and pans, the refrigerator, and stove. It would soon become apparent that without a designated kitchen space, that it would be extremely chaotic and frustrating during this meal time. Every time you want to prepare a meal or a snack, it would be time-consuming, trying to locate all the items necessary to cook a meal. So what is this house missing? This house is missing the benefits of defined space or designated rooms. What kinds of defined space can be found in a house? And I'm sure you're already all thinking about this and the answer to this question. A kitchen, a dining room, a family room, living room, bedrooms, and bathrooms. Now just think for a moment. If a child attends our after-school programs and the program is without structure or a defined space, children may ask themselves, will I be safe here? What is there for me to do here? How am I supposed to act? How will I be treated by others? Can I be myself? It becomes clear that with clear structure and limits, lets children know you are planning for their success and their overall well-being. Next slide, slide 17. So just as physical structure or defined spaces are important, so is routine. So pictured here, you will see a woman standing in the bathroom in her bathrobe in front of the bathroom sink and mirror, brushing her teeth. So I'd like you to take a moment and think about your morning bathroom routine. We don't need to know all the details, but what is the first thing that you do in the morning? What is the second thing you do? Now think if your routine was altered. What if you had to do your morning routine in reverse? Do you think you could do these things in a different way each morning? What if a well-meaning friend came to stay with you from out of town to visit, and they cleaned your bathroom? Well, you might think that's pretty exciting that somebody's visiting and cleaning your bathroom, but then they put away all your stuff in different places. As adults, no one tells us we have to do the morning routine, but we all do it. Why? Because structure makes life more manageable for all of us. Routines help us to organize our time and to get things done. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have also heard about going on autopilot. So you might not even think about what your morning routine is when you're in the bathroom, and that while you're washing your hair, maybe you're not even realizing you're doing it, and you're going through your list of activities that you need to do for the day. So you're on autopilot. Next slide, 18.
So let's talk about building program structure. We discussed what routine looks like in our daily lives, but what does it look like in our after-school programs? Oh, this is you.
So, as we discussed, what routine may look like in our lives, but what does it look like within our school programs? So program routine may look like at 2 p.m. the kids arrive to the site. We welcome the children to the program with excitement and enthusiasm. Children place their personal belongings in designated areas. At 2:05, children use the restroom. They wash their hands to get ready for snack time. At 2:10, it's snack time. We prepare heart-healthy, nutritious snacks and offer choices, including the children as much as possible in the decision-making process. 2:45, not that everybody's a big fan of this, but we have homework time, and this is an opportunity to jumpstart homework or have quiet activities for no more than 30 minutes. 3:15, finally time to get out that energy with outdoor play as we prepare for outdoor play for a minimum of 30 minutes, whether it's group games or hanging out on the playground. 3:45, we come back indoors. As we transition to the indoors, we go and wash our hands and have an opportunity to use the bathroom. 4 o'clock, we have arts and crafts. And you're all getting the gist of this routine by now. It's getting close to the end of the day, so it's 4:30. We're cleaning up. We're putting away supplies, washing our hands after arts and craft time. 4:40, gym time. Time for a large group activity or fitness station. We're planning every single minute. At 5:15, we have leisure activities, tabletop games, reading a book, doing a puzzle, even writing creative stories. 5:45, this is a really important part of the day where we're reflecting. We're reflecting about what did we enjoy best today? What activities would we like to do tomorrow? As we get ready to go home and for another day of school. Is our backpack ready to go? Does it include our homework? And 6 o'clock, departure. Remembering to wish everybody a good evening and talk to their parents if needed before walking out the door. Activities should be planned and facilitated up until the very last minute of the program conclusion. Corey?
So in addition to our daily structure, we also need routines within the activities. For example, when kids come into the room for arts and crafts, they know their designated tables or stations. They know that they should wait for instructions from the staff before they start the program or before they start the activity. In addition to routines, we also need to focus on age-appropriate activities. When setting up board games, you might have games such as Monopoly available for your older kids in your program. However, a game of this level, it's going to be challenging for the younger kids. The 5-year-olds or the 6-year-olds, they're going to get bored or overwhelmed with a game like Monopoly. So maybe you have Monopoly Junior out for them. You're going to have a large variety of ages within your programs, so you might break the group up for those activities so that everybody can participate. Or in addition to just having 1 or 2 board games out, you might have multiple board games at different stations, and kids can choose the ones that suit their interest. If you're in the gym, you're going to modify rules so that the playing field is equal for everyone and the older kids don't dominate the game. These are things that we all do in our programs on a daily basis. Choices. We want to talk about choices within the programs and activity as well, because this is incredibly important. Children should have choices on how they complete their projects. So if you're doing an art project and they need to color something in, are they using markers, or do they have the choice to use crayons or color pencils or maybe even paint? Maybe kids don't like sitting down to do an art project, so they're going to choose to stand up at their table or wander around a little bit. They may even want to lay down on the ground, and there's nothing wrong with this. These are acceptable and natural choices for all children within your programs. Giving kids the choice gives them a sense of power and control over themselves and their environment, which ultimately is going to minimize power struggles and negative behaviors within your programs. In addition to all of this, effective transitions are going to be incredibly important. Transitions should be conducted verbally as well as non-verbally. So for example, you could turn off the lights and say something like, "Mac and cheese, everybody freeze," to get the children's attention, to get them to stop listening. Or you could do something as silly as start singing, "Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? SpongeBob SquarePants!" And of course, all the kids are going to start responding to you because everybody knows that song, whether they've seen the show or not. It's just something to get everybody's attention. Other verbal transitions could be quietly saying, "If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, pat your head." You can't see us, but Sammy and I are in here patting our heads. And you're going to keep doing this action over and over. If you can hear me, snap your fingers. And you're going to come up with different scenarios or different actions for the kids to complete until you get all of the children's attention. Nonverbal cues in addition to these could be something as catchy as a clap to get attention. So mimic clap. You're going to clap once and the kids are going to clap back. Or the one that I'm not a fan of, it's mostly in school, but you've seen it, put your finger over your lips and raise your hand to get everybody to stop talking and get their attention. You could use holding up a stop sign or a visual aid so that kids who are not receptive to the loud noises of clapping still see the verbal cues that you are trying to get everybody's attention. You can use things such as countdown timers, hourglasses, or traffic lights. There's so many different options, but you want to make sure that you're not just doing all of your transitions verbally, but you're incorporating those nonverbals as well. Moving on to slide 19 for setting clear rules and expectations. Your rules need to be reviewed on a daily basis with the program participants. I know that this can seem a little daunting and overwhelming and like, we know the rules, we've done them already, but for the kids, it's really important to keep reminding them and setting those expectations. I have a 5-year-old daughter who is transitioning into kindergarten, and every morning we have to go through the same thing. All right, we're working for a green today. What are we going to do to earn the green? And she repeats back to me, we're going to listen. Okay, and what does listening look like? I'm not going to talk. Okay, great. So it's like, you know the things you're supposed to do, but we have to verbally review them every day to make sure that that stays as our main focus for the day. When you're establishing program rules, you want to limit it to 3 to 5 rules. More than that, it gets overwhelming, confusing, and we forget them. More than 5 rules, they get redundant and unnecessary. When you post the rules, you want to post the consequences with them so the kids know what they are and they can be consistent and enforceable. And you want to post them at eye level, or like I like to call it C level. You want to post it where the kids can see it. Posting it at adult level doesn't help the kids. They're looking like, I don't know what I'm looking at here. I can't see that high. So it's hard to review them and go over them if they're too high for the children to see. Your rules need to be clear, specific, and phrased in the positive. So instead of no hitting, we're going to phrase it, we keep our hands to ourselves. Instead of no yelling, we're going to say we use our inside voices. When we have rules that say be respectful, well, what does that look like? Respect looks different to everybody. So we have to clarify using specific language what that looks like. So we use our listening ears when others are talking. That shows respect to others, but it's a visual that everybody knows what it looks like. We also don't make rules just to make rules and then are not enforceable. So my favorite is make new friends. Why do I have to make friends? What if I don't want to make new friends? I like my friends. I'll be nice and polite to everybody, but if I don't want to make new friends, you can't force me to make new friends, and that's just a silly rule. So whenever possible, you want to get the children's input in developing the rules as well. That gives them buy-in. It holds them accountable. By using words and pictures in our rules, we're able to connect with different learning styles. So we have some kids who need visual boundaries. So for example, a stop sign on the door to remind them that they need to stay within their group activity. Or putting a piece of tape across the floor to divide a room. This is the area that we stay in. Using orange cones to set up the limits. You get the idea. Next slide, number 20. We're going to start talking about choosing a program. So Sandy, can you move us on to slide 21?
Sure. So back to the continuum where we start with community-based programming, therapeutic recreation programs. Therapeutic recreation programs are specialized programs designed specifically for individuals with disabilities. They typically have a smaller group in nature with 12 or less participants and have a higher staff to participant ratio. So depending on the needs and abilities of the group will determine the ratio. Some programs have one staff member for every 3 participants, for example. Or it could be a wide range, from a 1-to-1 all the way up to a 1-to-5. Transitions are built in, similar to the ones that Corey has previously mentioned. Activities tend to be shorter in duration to keep the participants on track and to ensure that we're not losing their attention span. So activities might be 15 minutes versus the 30 minutes. Participants typically have individual recreation plans to assist with specific skill development, and they're tailored to meet the individual needs. A lot of times in a therapeutic recreation program too, we'll see parallel play versus group play. But it doesn't mean that group play doesn't occur.
Next slide, number 22. With our therapeutics, or with our inclusive settings, you're going to tend to see larger group sizes. Not always. I know within Parks and Recreation, some of our programs have smaller group sizes just naturally because of the location. But as a whole, overall, there are typically more than 15 kids within one of these programs. Our staff to participant ratios are usually 1 to 10. The individual scheduled activities can be a minimum of 30 minutes up to an hour long sometimes. The participants are engaged in the scheduled activities for a majority of the program, and they're encouraged to play with their peers. So instead of that parallel play, we are focusing on those social interactions and the group play. Remember that inclusion is a philosophy. It's not a program. It's the philosophy that all people have the right to be included with their peers in age-appropriate activities throughout life. So what are the minimum requirements for successful inclusion, you might ask? The same minimum requirements which apply to a person without a disability are also going to apply to your people with disabilities. These could include things like meeting the age and registration requirements of the program, following the rules of conduct with or without a reasonable accommodation. Participating in recreation programs and activities is going to be voluntary, so it's going to be encouraged and aided, but we're not going to force anybody to do it. With or without reasonable accommodations, the participants will engage in scheduled activities for the majority of the time, so we're not doing that separate programming. We're not self-isolating. Participants need to have the ability to use a consistent form of communication to indicate their basic needs and follow 1, 2, or 3-step directions. And additionally, they need the ability to tolerate and function with or without assistance as a member of a large social group. So that's 12 or more people. Moving on to slide 23, we're going to talk about developing accommodations. Now that we have the program foundation with the structure, we've established routines and clear expectations, we can proceed to developing a disability accommodation to support a child who is registered for our programs. On this slide, we have a circle with 4 connecting arrows. Each arrow represents a portion of the API process. And for those of you who aren't familiar with API, it stands for Assess, Plan, Implement, and Evaluate. Developing accommodations or modifications is a cycle and a process. There's no one cookie-cutter accommodation that is provided across the board. Each accommodation is going to be individually developed for the individual person to meet their wants and needs. Some things to consider when helping someone find the right program or helping them guide their program choices. What program setting does the participant want to be in? Do they want a therapeutic environment, or would they prefer an inclusive setting? What type of an environment would offer them the most success? What are their likes and interests? Do they really enjoy nature? So maybe we tell them about the awesome nature programs we have. Or do they really like basketball? So we're going to talk about the basketball classes that we have. The participant chooses the way they want to participate, and then we as a staff work with them to determine their individual needs and what we're going to do to support them. We're going to move on to slide 24.
So phase 1 of API is the assessment. So what is the purpose of conducting an assessment? The purpose is to use this as a tool to assist with identifying program opportunities and to help individuals be successful in the program of their choice. Assessments are not to build barriers to program access. It's the opposite. The more information we have up front allows for better outcomes when building a person's accommodation or modifications for success. Each plan is tailored to meet the individual's needs and is not a one-size-all-fits approach. Assessments focus on a participant's history and needs in the following areas. Physical, we explore the person's physical abilities. Are they ambulatory? Do they use a walker? Do they use a wheelchair? Can they transfer from the wheelchair independently or with assistance? Activities of daily living, eating, bathing, dressing, toileting, transferring, incontinence. Social, preference of group sizes. As Corey previously said, there's a difference between a large versus small groups, interactions with peers versus adults. Emotional, ability to self-regulate emotions, understand and communicate feelings. Cognitive, safety awareness, ability to keep up with their own belongings. Sensory, input needed, deep pressure, sensitivity to noise, visual stimulation, sensitivity to lights. Health concerns, are there any medications or medical needs that we need to tend to? Communication techniques, verbal, sign language, communication devices, picture board, or cards. Slide number 25. So this is an example of on your screen is a disability accommodation form. And this is an example of the form that we use currently with our participants in Prince George's County. This is just one example, and in fact, we're continuously updating and modifying it with the changing needs of our community and the services that we provide. In Section 1, we collect personal information such as someone's name, age, date, birth, gender, address, emergency contact, disability or diagnosis, and school information. It's helpful to have information from multiple settings, not just from home, so that's why we've included school as well for teacher input. Section 2 focuses on health information, such as medical conditions, diabetes, seizure, asthma, allergies, dietary restrictions, medications, devices, and procedures. Slide number 26. So on this slide, you'll see sections number 3, 4, and 5. Section 3 highlights communication. We want to know how the child best communicates and how he or she will effectively communicate during program hours. Does the child have verbal speech? Is the speech clear? If the child is nonverbal, how does he or she effectively communicate their basic needs? I'm hurt. I'm hungry. Or I need the bathroom. Is the child able to use gestures, pictures, a communication board? Or does the child utilize an iPad or some type of technology? Does the child know basic sign language or even conversational sign language? Section 4, activities of daily living. We want to know a little bit more about the child's independence and where they need support. Are they independent, need some assistance, or full assistance in areas like dressing, eating, toileting, and mobility? In Section 5, we focus on behavior. And remember, this assessment is not to build barriers to participation, it's to facilitate participation. So Section 5, I just don't want people to be alarmed when they start reading down the different types of behaviors that could possibly be exhibited. So in Section 5, does the child need support with a specific behavior? Are they easily distracted or discouraged? Do they run away from the group? What are some things the child really enjoys or strongly dislikes? Does the child have any strong fears? I find that on a lot of our accommodations assessments, we see a strong fear of dogs. What types of things or rewards motivate the child? Does the child have an existing behavior plan? And don't be alarmed if they check yes and say, yes, my child does have a plan. This is actually going to be very helpful in moving forward with the accommodation. We share information to provide consistency with support. Great, slide number 27. I know this seems like a long way, but hang in there with us. So we're gathering a lot of information in hopes of building a successful accommodation, so please just keep that in mind. Section 6, are there any safety concerns that staff should be aware of during the child's participation in our programs? Section 7, this is our area, this is big time. This is about asking the child about their recreation interests. Are there any adaptations or modifications needed in order to participate in our wonderful programming that we offer? What is the best way to support the child's learning style? Is it by pre-teaching activities, demonstrating them, giving verbal or physical prompting such as hand-over-hand guidance, peer or buddy, specialized or offering specialized adaptive equipment. Okay, we are on the last page of the assessment, slide number 28. We're coming to a close, like I said. Section 8, we're focusing on socialization. And how does the child interact with other people, with peers, adults, and groups? We also seek input regarding sensory processing, as we discussed earlier, with noise tolerance and lighting. And Section 9 is reserved for additional comments that the parent would like to share with us.
So next slide, number 29, we're going to move into phase 2 of the accommodation process. So this is the planning phase. We have collected all this fantastic information from the parents or from the participants regarding their needs. And so now we're going to plan our accommodation. Remember that we've talked about it already, but I can't emphasize it enough. Accommodations are not one size fit all. They're not even one size fit most. Just because one child has the same disability as another child does not mean their accommodations are going to look the same. All kids with autism don't get the support staff. All kids with Down syndrome don't get the motivators. You know, every kid is different. So we're going to treat each individual accommodation for the child. When developing our individual recreation plans, we're going to make sure they're specially customized to meet their individual factors, and all of those things in the assessment are things that we're going to consider. We're going to look at how adaptations and modifications can be provided to the existing program structure. For example, a modification of a policy could be if you have a participant who has diabetes and they need insulin injections. You're going to modify the policy to allow for the parent, guardian, or a designee of their choice to come into the program to administer the insulin for that child as needed. Examples of reasonable accommodations that we might provide. It could be one of these, it could be a combination of these. Like I said, all accommodations are built to the individual person. So you might increase the staff to participant ratio with trained staff or volunteers. You could allow participants to bring in a companion of their choice. This could also be an ABA therapist who might come in to work on social skills with the participant within the program. And provide that ABA therapy within the context of the program while also training the support staff you have in place for when they're not there. That again speaks to that consistency in services that Sandy referenced earlier. We might provide sign language interpreters. We could use adaptive equipment such as noise minimizing headphones or wiggle cushions for kids who have a hard time sitting still, fidgets or manipulatives to keep kids who are a little hyperactive and busy, keep their fingers busy so their fingers aren't searching around finding something else to touch like the other participants. We're going to allow for breaks within the program or activities sometimes. We might do behavior reward charts. We might schedule parent meetings to do touch-ins and check-ins and feedback and see how things are going. We're also going to assist with the provision of health services which do not require medical training and accessible transportation provided for field trips. These are all examples of reasonable accommodations that we could provide within a program. There are also examples of unreasonable accommodations. Parents might ask for something and you're like, whoa, that's outside of our scope, but that's not something we can do. And these things are provision of separate areas or alternate activities for a significant portion of the scheduled program. So if you have a kid who's in your after-school program and they just refuse to participate with the group, and the parent's like, oh, well, that's okay, just let them go sit over in the corner and read a book the entire time. They'll be fine. Is that an inclusive setting? We can't do exceptions to minimum compliance with the program's rules and regulations with or without accommodations. These are established for the safety of all the program participants and the staff, and so safety is always going to be our #1 priority and key. So we're going to work with everyone to provide a safe and nurturing environment for everybody who's there. We can't guarantee the hiring or selection of specific staff, and we can't conduct individualized therapy that's going to exclude the participant from the program. So I mentioned ABA therapy earlier. Yes, that is an individualized therapy conducted within the program, but the therapist is there to work with the child within the context of the program. So they're not excluding them or pulling them out from the program. And then we're not going to provide or purchase custom specialized devices that could only be used for that one child. If we're going to buy adaptive equipment that we mentioned, it's going to be universally adaptive, so multiple people could use that one specific equipment that we're going to use. All right, slide number 30, moving into phase 3.
So phase 3, the implementation phase. So one of the first things is before you can implement something, you have to have total buy-in, and buy-in all the way right down to the child whose plan this is for. So sure, you can include the child when you're talking about what accommodations may work best for him or her. Then you're going to write up the plan. And then everyone needs to agree to the plan. You want to make sure that it is well documented and communicated. So not just to the people who, the parents, the child, maybe your therapeutic recreation or inclusion services team, but also the general recreation staff who are operating the program need to receive the communication of the plan to ensure that accommodations are in place and ready to go. You want to also ensure that you have appropriate supplies and adaptive equipment, if needed, behavior charts, reward systems, and when the implementation phase begins, you're going to monitor the plan and the progress of the child.
All right, so moving on to slide number 31, we're going to evaluate it. So every good accommodation has to be reviewed, it has to be evaluated for success. It might be going along great, and you're like, great, we're going to keep this up because it's going well. Or it might be, you know what, we need to make some tweaks and we need to make some changes to help it be more successful. During the evaluation phase, we're going to review documented results. So if you're doing trackers on a regular basis, letting us know how successful the accommodation is being. We're going to conduct site visits and observations to observe the program structure and the routine and the clear expectations and limits are being enforced at all times. For trackers, if you are doing a behavior chart, the tracker would be proof that the behavior chart has been implemented. So if you're sending the behavior chart home with the parents, you're going to want to make a copy of it to keep it on site just for your records so that you're like, yep, it's working, we're using the behavior chart. Or if you're not using the behavior chart and that's something that we implemented, then we need to have a follow-up review and conversation. Say, hey, look, this is an accommodation we set in place. We're not going to be successful without this behavior chart, so we need to make sure that it's being used. If any of the factors such as the accommodations that we set in place are not happening or the program structure is not there, routine, if there's not clear expectations and limits, if any of these things are missing, your accommodation's not going to be successful. It all has to work together. It's like a puzzle, you know. You've got the entire picture that you want to see in the end, but if you're missing a piece or two of the puzzle, you can't complete it, and it's not going to, the picture's not going to be as comprehensive. So you're also going to possibly, during evaluations, you might have parent meetings. You might talk with the parents, you might talk with the participant, you might talk with the staff on site, you might talk with a therapist if the parent wants to bring a therapist in. These are all great resources. They can provide you feedback as to how the accommodation's going, or you can provide them feedback as to how you think the accommodation's going, and together you can have a dialogue as to what you can do to better enhance the program, or better enhance the accommodation. You can ask about what's happening in the school setting, if the therapist has any specific feedback that they're doing in therapy that you could utilize within the program. Again, we talked about that consistency is key, so we don't all want to work against each other. If there's a behavior plan in school, we want to utilize that same behavior plan in our after-school programs so that the child understands the consistency. We're not trying to teach them something new other than what they're already familiar with. So if necessary, you're going to adjust and you're going to modify the plan based on the input that you have from those parent meetings. And then you're going to go back and you're going to collect some more information on the assessment from these parent meetings, and that's where the cycle is going to start all over. So you've assessed, you've had the parent meeting, you're going to go back and you're going to plan again. All right, we have a new plan. Here's what we're going to do moving forward. We might keep some of the same information that we had from our initial plan, and we're just going to tweak it and modify it. Maybe we had a behavior plan, but we were doing 20-minute check-ins on our behavior plan, on our reward chart, and we realized that 20 minutes is just a tad bit too long. You know, right at that 15-minute mark is when we kind of start to get antsy and we lose our reward in that last 5 minutes of the 20 minutes. Maybe we need to modify our behavior reward chart down to a 15-minute check-in. So at 15 minutes, we can be like, all right, how are we doing? We're doing good. We're keeping our hands to ourselves. We're using our inside voice. Fantastic. Here's our 15-minute reward, and let's go move on. 20 minutes might have been too much. 15 minutes might be the right amount. So just adjusting it based on the individual's needs and how it's working at the time. Moving on to slide 32, just a real life scenario that we've got. So for example, we talked about behavior reward charts or behavior charts or visual schedules for the kids. We had a young man in one of our preschool programs a couple of years ago, last year, who was really, really into race cars. And so we developed a visual schedule for him that was race car themed, and I cannot take credit for this. My inclusion specialist, Dan Vigas, did an amazing job with it. He found out what the kids really enjoyed, and he was like, all right, you like schedule, you need a visual schedule, you like race cars, I'm going to create you a road map. So he made a race car track, and the schedule was put along the race car track, and the young man was able to take the car and move it along to each activity. So he knew what was coming up next. He put the car on the bathroom. He knew it was time to go to the bathroom. He came back from the bathroom and he moved the car onto snack. And so he knew that it was time to transition into snack. He wasn't going to be able to read the schedule that was posted on the wall, so we created a visual schedule for him. We have a kid in one of our after-school programs who is big into superheroes, loves superheroes. So for his reward chart, we made it a superhero theme. He's got superhero stickers. And so he gets a pow or a wow or a bang for all of his check-in rewards. And if he gets the right number at the end of the day, he gets a daily reward. And at the end of the week, he gets a bigger reward for the week. So everything is individualized. And when you can tailor it to their personal interests or their personal needs, you're going to have more success. If I have just a regular visual schedule, is that going to be as effective for a kid who likes to race cars? If I just have random stickers on the wall and they're pretty princess stickers, he doesn't like pretty princess stickers, so why am I going to use pretty princess with him? I'm going to use race cars because that's what he likes. That's what's going to motivate him. That's what's going to encourage him to participate, to engage, and to be successful. Moving on to slide 32, just to recap, Sandy.
33.
33, I'm sorry, we were just on 32.
So these are some of the things that we hope you gained from today's webinar. That number one, that you're able to discuss the continuum of therapeutic recreation as it relates to community-based parks and recreation programs. Number two, that you can identify 3 methods of building structure within a program. 3, develop 3 to 5 ways to establish expectations that are clear and transparent. And number 4, analyze the needs of the program participant through assessment tools to develop reasonable accommodations or modifications. So hang in there with us. We're going to go into a Q&A, but after the Q&A, we are going to have a closing story.
Okay, so we're on slide 34 now, Q&A. Thank you guys for that presentation. Lots of really good information here. We have a little bit of time for some questions. So let's start with, so community-based is in the title of the webinar. What exactly is community-based about your programs?
So we are a Title II Parks and Recreation agency. So by community-based, we are non-clinical.
Okay, and can you say a little bit more about the difference between those two things? Like, what is the difference between clinical and community?
Sure. Clinical is typically to the it's on the far left of the continuum, and when we talk about a clinical setting, we're talking about like a physical rehab hospital, a psychiatric hospital. It tends to be hospital or medical based.
Okay. So for the community-based, is that actually located in different places in the community itself, or is there like a centralized location that people come and?
So exactly, those are great questions. So community-based recreation is all throughout your community. And if you think of, for example, the library system and how there's libraries in your towns, well, also community recreation occurs. It could be a community center. It could be recreation that occurs in a school building, local parks.
Okay, let's see. Another question here is, how do your programs differ from others in like other areas of the region or the country? Do you know much about like how you might be doing things differently?
I would say, I mean, it all depends on where you are. I know there are several other agencies in the area that provide inclusion services. We are seen as a leader when it comes to therapeutic recreation programs and inclusion services throughout the nation, which is pretty awesome. We are uniquely funded, which I think benefits our agency, and that we are funded through property tax, whereas most parks and recreation agencies, they are funded through the county or the city's general fund. And so I know that that can sometimes limit the financial resources that agencies have to provide the services that we're able to provide. That doesn't mean that the expectation is not there. It doesn't mean that it's not possible. It just means you have to come at it from a different viewpoint, and you have to be creative in your thinking and the accommodations that you provide. So you have to utilize the resources that you have, or you look for alternative funding through grants or scholarships in various locations.
I think that sometimes too that there are misconceptions about accommodation costs. Most certainly in Prince George's County we do have paid support staff, but there are other means of doing that by setting up volunteer programs, providing companions, which there's no fees for these, but then a lot of times when we're being creative and teaching people about accommodations, most of the things that I'm utilizing, I got to tell you, I go to the Dollar Tree. I also use Five Below. I'm using resources that are very inexpensive.
You can also use resources that are already in the program settings as well. So the rewards don't have to be cost. You don't have to pay for rewards, kind of thing. You can use things that are internally motivated by the child that can already be provided within your program. Sometimes kids just want extra attention. And so one of the big rewards that we use is at the end of the day, they get 15 minutes of uninterrupted time with a staff of their choice.
Another question. So are the programs exclusively for children with disabilities, or are there ever any opportunities for integration with kids who don't have disabilities?
Yes, so we have choices along the continuum, and a person has the right to choose how they want to participate. So we do have therapeutic recreation programs where we do, which are open to Prince George's County residents only, but we also have a lot of general recreation programs where our inclusion services offices are providing support to those general programs.
Yeah, so everything that we talked about today is really utilized in inclusive settings. So it's that you do use some of the techniques in a therapeutic environment, but all of these techniques, they're not just for the kids with disabilities. These are techniques that benefit all of the kids within your program. Every kid thrives off of structure, not just the kid with ADHD.
So for example, too, we are operating several after-school locations, and those after-school sites might have 30 children in the program, but one child with a disability who's receiving support.
Here's a question someone asked. How do you manage it when a parent enrolls in a program that is inclusive, but a therapeutic setting would be better? Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it makes absolute sense. Yes. That's where you work with the participant and the parent to develop and build that accommodation, because like we've mentioned earlier, recreational programming is a choice, and participants get to engage in in programs of their choosing. So we see a lot of times where parents will call and tell us that their kid is in an isolated program in the school system. They're in a segregated classroom. They've got 4 or 7 kids in their class, but they'd like to come to an inclusive after-school program because they know that their child needs to be successful in an inclusive world. And so we talk with that parent and we build the accommodation, and we remind the parent that the participants have to follow the rules of play and the code of conduct with or without a reasonable accommodation. And we do everything in our power to help that child be successful. This is the kid that we're not just going to put a support staff in place and call it a day. We're going to have the support staff. We're going to have the behavior charts. We're going to review the rules every day. We're going to build that accommodation, and we're going to track it to help it be successful. And if we have to, we're going to have those parent meetings to say, okay, here's everything we've done. This isn't working out. What can we do next? And sometimes through that conversation, parents realize, you know what, my kid's not ready yet.
So I just want to tag on to you, Corey. So sometimes just because a child may not be successful in one program doesn't mean that they won't be successful in another. So earlier at the very beginning, we gave the example of the 12-year-old child using the full continuum. So the child attends aftercare Monday through Friday with the help of a support staff, attends the therapeutic recreation aftercare, but is able to go to a community center and attend a karate class with the help of a support staff. But when the weekend comes around, they attend a computer gaming class where they can participate independently. So I think it's really important to look at the big picture and where the child can be successful.
You can also look at your different inclusive programs, because not all of our after-school programs are the same. Just like not every kid is the same, every after-school program is different based on the community center or the area that it's offered in. And some are larger and some are smaller. So I had one little boy who was registered at one of our larger after-school programs. There were probably 45 or 50 kids registered, and every day during homework he just had a complete meltdown. And he was throwing tantrum and throwing fits and hitting other kids, and obviously saying, homework time is not for me. However, we had conversations with his dad, and his dad was like, well, are there other programs available? Not necessarily inclusive or therapeutic programs, but other inclusive programs. And we were able to move to suggest another community center that was actually closer to the dad's home, more convenient for the dad's work. It meant a longer school bus ride for the young man, but he got there after homework time. And so by arriving to the after-school program after homework time, which is when his big challenges were, he's been able to participate with his peers in all of the other activities that that community or program had to offer.
Well, I think we better move on here because we want to be done by 3 o'clock, but that was very good information. So slide 35, you guys got more to say?
Yeah, we just have a quick little guided imagery to leave you with today. So take a moment to imagine a late spring afternoon. It's 4 p.m. and Mrs. Tyler is on her way to pick up her 8-year-old son, Justin, from the after-school program after her busy day at work. She smiles as she pulls up and sees Justin with the other children playing in the playground. He and his friends are obviously having fun. Laughter fills the air, and Justin is enjoying himself so much that he doesn't even notice his mother calling out for him. Justin finally notices his mother's arrival and appears excited to see her, yet disappointed that the time has come for him to say goodbye to his friends. As he joins his mother, there's a chorus of voices shouting, "Bye, Justin! See you tomorrow! Have a great day!" Driving home, Mrs. Tyler and her son discuss his day at school. He can't wait to tell her that during lunch, Jesse had asked him over to his house for a pool party this Saturday. Now imagine that Justin was born with Down syndrome. Now you've just witnessed inclusion. So thank you all so much.
Thank you for your time today. We certainly appreciate you. And on slide number 36 are resources. And then on slide 37, you can reach Corey and I if you have additional questions or comments, or you'd like us to share some additional materials with you. Thank you again. Thanks. Have a great day.
Okay, thanks, guys. Let's go to slide 38. So if you have submitted payment to receive a certificate of participation or a credit, which I don't think we're offering for this one, right? It's just certificates of participation. The code is Kids Have Fun. So again, that code is Kids Have Fun. You can check the reminder email that you received, which will give you instructions about how you can receive that certificate of participation. You can email that code to adatraining@transcen.org, and we need to receive that by 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday, October 21st. And slide 39, this webinar has been presented by the Mid-Atlantic ADA Center, a project of TransCen Incorporated. You can call the Mid-Atlantic ADA Center toll-free, 800-949-4232, or you can call our local number, 301-217-0124. You can also email us at adainfo@transcen.org. Our website is adainfo.org. And if you have any questions, need any information about the ADA, you can use those methods to get a hold of us. So thank you everyone for joining us. Have a great day.